The paper sliced open my fingertip as I pulled it from between the quarterly reports. A small drop of blood stained the corner of the note, but I barely noticed as I read the words that would change everything. Thursday, 2 p.m., Conference Room B. Start with performance concerns. Mention incomplete client profiles. Emphasize team complaints about attitude. Use liability twice. End with termination effective immediately. At the bottom, underlined 3 times. Revenge firing. Deserved. My breath caught. I stared at Vernon's handwriting. The distinctive swooping Ys. The sharp angles of his capital letters. The same handwriting that had signed birthday cards, meeting agendas, and congratulatory notes over our 2 years working together. Now it mapped out my professional execution with the precision of a general planning a military strike. The office hummed with Tuesday afternoon energy around me, but I stood frozen, the paper trembling slightly in my hand. Vernon walked past, catching my eye with a friendly nod before noticing what I held. His face shifted, shock, fear, then something harder settling across his features. "That's private," he said, voice low but sharp. "Is it?" I whispered, looking down at the note again. "Because it seems to be about me." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Life isn't fair, Kit. Some people get everything handed to them. Others have to take what they deserve. And you deserve my job? I deserve not to be overlooked again." His eyes gleamed with something cold. "You should call in sick Thursday. Make this easier on yourself." As he walked away, I noticed our department head watching from across the room. She quickly turned back to her computer, but the brief eye contact confirmed my suspicion. She knew about this plan. Maybe she'd even approved it. 2 years of collaboration. Hundreds of projects completed together. Countless times I'd covered for Vernon's mistakes, or helped him understand procedures he struggled with. And this was my reward. A calculated ambush, disguised as a performance review, orchestrated by someone I'd considered, if not a friend, at least a respected colleague. The betrayal burned like acid in my throat. I tucked the note into my pocket and returned to my desk, mind racing. If Vernon had planned this, who else was involved? How long had this been brewing? And most importantly, what exactly was I going to do about it? I glanced at my calendar. Today was Tuesday. I had less than 48 hours until my scheduled professional execution. Hey, if you're enjoying this wild workplace betrayal so far, take a second to like and subscribe. Trust me, you'll want to see how Kit handles this backstabbing colleague, and I promise the revenge is worth sticking around for. Drop a comment with what you'd do in her shoes. Now, back to the story. My name is Kit Ashmore. Until finding that note, I'd believed I was respected at Powell Marketing. Not universally loved, perhaps, but valued for my contributions and work ethic. I'd started as an assistant 4 years ago and worked my way up to senior project manager through consistent results and long hours. When Director of Client Relations had opened up last month, I'd been quietly confident about my chances. Vernon had joined the company 2 years after me. I'd been assigned to train him, showing him our systems, introducing him to clients, even inviting him to lunch with our team his first week. He'd been charming, quick to learn, and eager to please. We'd worked well together, or so I'd thought. The signs had been there, though. The small comments when projects succeeded. Kit got lucky with the timing on that one. The way he'd interrupt me in meetings to rephrase my ideas as his own. The clients who suddenly requested to work with him instead of me, after years of solid relationships. I'd dismissed these as normal workplace friction. Competition was natural in our field. Not everyone became friends. But revenge firing? What had I done to deserve revenge? I spent Tuesday night dissecting every interaction with Vernon, searching for the trigger that had turned a colleague into an enemy. The pieces came together slowly. The director position, my recent commendation from the CEO, the major client who'd specifically requested me for their rebranding. Vernon hadn't wanted friendly competition. He'd wanted domination. Wednesday morning arrived with a headache and a plan forming. I arrived early, before most of the office, and headed straight to IT. "Morning, Kit," greeted Zoe, our systems administrator. "You're here early. Need a favor," I said, keeping my voice casual. "I think I accidentally deleted some important emails from last month. Any way to recover them?" Zoe pushed her glasses up. "Your deleted items folder should keep them for 30 days. Already checked. These would be from specific people." I slid her a post-it note with Vernon's name and our department head, Penny. Her eyebrows rose slightly. "This is unusual. It's for the Westbrook project review." I lied smoothly. Need to verify some approval timestamps. Zoe hesitated, then nodded. Give me an hour. I'll send what I find to your secure folder. I spent that hour organizing my desk, backing up personal files, and photographing my current project's status. If Thursday went as Vernon planned, I needed evidence of my work. At 10 a.m., I checked my secure folder. Zoe had come through magnificently. There, in neatly organized files, was my evidence. Dozens of emails between Vernon and Penny discussing my performance issues, dating back 3 months. Messages where Vernon claimed credit for my work, forwarded client communications that had never reached me. The most damning email was from just last week. Thursday's meeting is set. HR has reviewed the documentation and approved the termination based on the evidence provided. Kit won't see this coming. The director position announcement will go out Friday morning with your recommendation. My hands shook, but not from fear anymore. The betrayal had crystallized into something harder, colder. They hadn't just planned to fire me. They'd fabricated reasons, manipulated evidence, and scheduled my replacement before I even knew I was leaving. During lunch, I noticed Vernon and Penny in deep conversation by the break room. Vernon laughed, checking his watch before nodding emphatically. Penny patted his shoulder like a proud mentor. Celia from HR walked past my desk that afternoon, giving me a sympathetic smile that confirmed my suspicions further. The entire machinery of my termination was in motion, everyone playing their assigned roles. That evening, instead of going home, I drove to our biggest client's office. Marcus Hollister, CEO of Hollister Brands, had always appreciated directness. "Kit," he greeted me, surprised to find me in his lobby at 6 p.m. "Is something wrong with the campaign?" "No, but there's something you should know about tomorrow." I laid out what I'd discovered, showing him select emails that mentioned his account specifically. His expression darkened as he read Vernon's claims to have been the real creative force behind their successful rebrand. "This is concerning," Marcus said finally. "You've been our contact for 3 years. The work has been exceptional. Thank you. I'm not here to create problems, but I wanted you to know directly from me that changes might be coming. Vernon may claim he's been handling your account all along." Marcus folded his hands. "What do you need from me, Kit? Just the truth, if anyone asks." He nodded slowly. "I can do better than that. I left his office with my first ally, but I needed more. I spent that night making calls, sending emails, and preparing for Thursday's ambush. Sleep came in fragments, interrupted by new ideas and contingency plans. By dawn, I felt hollow-eyed but resolute. Thursday morning brought artificial normalcy to the office. Colleagues avoided eye contact. Vernon practically bounced with barely concealed excitement. Penny emerged from her office only briefly, checking her watch with pointed significance when she saw me. At 1:45 p.m., my phone rang. "Conference room B has a plumbing issue," said the receptionist. "Your 2 p.m. meeting has been moved to the main conference room." My heart skipped. The main conference room had glass walls, and totally visible to the entire office. They'd moved my humiliation to a fishbowl for maximum impact. At 1:55, I gathered my notebook, phone, and a slim folder. Vernon passed my desk, already wearing his victor's smile. "Good luck in there," he said, voice dripping with false concern. I looked up at him, keeping my expression neutral. "Thanks, Vernon. I think today will surprise everyone." His smile faltered slightly before he recovered. "Just remember, business isn't personal." "No," I agreed, standing to face him directly. "But betrayal always is." I walked into the main conference room at precisely 2 p.m. As expected, Penny sat at the head of the table, a thick folder before her. Vernon sat to her right, practically vibrating with anticipation. Celia from HR occupied the chair nearest the door, standard protocol for terminations. They'd positioned an empty chair with its back to the glass wall, ensuring my reaction would be on display for the entire office. I took a different seat, one that faced the door rather than the wall. "Kit, please sit here," Penny said, pointing to their chosen chair. "I'm more comfortable here, thanks," I replied, placing my slim folder on the table. "Since we're all being so transparent today." Vernon's eyes flicked nervously to the folder, then back to Penny, who cleared her throat. "We've called this meeting to discuss some concerns about your performance," Penny began, using the exact wording from Vernon's note. "There have been several issues that—" The conference room door opened, interrupting her. Marcus Hollister walked in, followed by his executive assistant. "Sorry I'm late," he said, though he hadn't been invited. Penny's mouth opened, then closed. "Mr. Hollister, We're in the middle of an internal meeting. Yes, about Kit's performance, Marcus said, taking the seat beside me. Since Hollister Brands represents 20% of your annual revenue, I thought my input might be relevant. Vernon's face had gone sheet white. Penny recovered more quickly. While we appreciate your business, this is a private personnel matter. The door opened again. This time, it was Reggie Townsend, our CEO, accompanied by Diane from legal. I invited them, I said quietly. Reggie took in the scene with narrowed eyes. Penny, I understand you're conducting a performance review that might result in termination? Yes, sir. We have documented evidence of… Interesting, Reggie interrupted. Since terminations at Kit's level require my approval, and I've received no such request. The atmosphere in the room shifted palpably. Vernon looked like he might be sick. Penny's professional mask slipped for just a moment, revealing panic before she composed herself. We were gathering the final documentation today to present to you, she said smoothly. I opened my folder and removed a single sheet of paper, sliding it across the table to Reggie. Perhaps this documentation will help clarify the situation. It was Vernon's handwritten note, now laminated to preserve the small bloodstain from my paper cut. Reggie read it, his expression darkening. Revenge firing? He asked, looking at Vernon. Would you care to explain this? Vernon's mouth worked silently before he found his voice. That's not mine. Kit must have written it to frame me. I pulled out my phone. Would you like to hear the recording of our conversation from Tuesday, when you confirmed writing it? Vernon's eyes widened. You recorded me? That's illegal. Actually, Diane from legal interjected. California is a two-party consent state, but our employee handbook clearly states that all workplace conversations may be recorded for quality assurance purposes. You signed acknowledgement of this policy when you were hired. Penny tried to regain control. Regardless of this note, we have legitimate concerns about Kit's performance that… Like what? Marcus Hollister interrupted. Because from our perspective, Kit's work has been exemplary. In fact, we specifically requested her for our recent rebranding. There have been communication issues, Penny insisted, opening her folder. Multiple team members have reported. May I see those reports? Reggie asked. Penny hesitated before passing him several documents. Reggie scanned them, frowning. These are all dated within the last 3 weeks, and they're all from employees who report directly to Vernon. He looked up. Convenient timing, considering the director position announcement was scheduled for tomorrow. The glass walls now served a different purpose than Vernon and Penny had intended. Rather than showcasing my humiliation, they displayed their own increasingly desperate attempts to salvage their plan. Vernon cracked first. This is ridiculous. Kit has been coasting on others' work for years. She's not qualified for the director position. I am. Is that what this is about? Reggie asked quietly. The promotion? It should have been mine, Vernon hissed, abandoning pretense. I've done everything right. Networked with the right people, put in extra hours, learned everyone's weaknesses, but it's never enough because perfect Kit is always there, stealing opportunities that should go to people who deserve them. The room went silent. Vernon seemed to realize what he'd admitted and sank back in his chair. I think we've heard enough, Reggie said. Diane, please escort Vernon to his desk to collect his personal items. His employment is terminated, effective immediately. Vernon stood so abruptly, his chair toppled backward. You can't do this. Penny approved everything. She helped me plan it. All eyes turned to Penny, who had gone very still. That's absurd, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. I would never authorize something so unprofessional. I removed another document from my folder, the email where she had done exactly that. As Diane led a still protesting Vernon away, Reggie turned to Penny. We'll continue this discussion in my office. Now. They left, leaving me alone with Marcus and Celia from HR, who looked shell-shocked. I should go document something, Celia muttered, gathering her things and fleeing the room. Marcus turned to me with raised eyebrows. Remind me never to cross you. I let out a shaky breath. I didn't want it to happen this way. No? He looked skeptical. I wanted to expose the truth, I clarified. The method was their choice. As I left the conference room, colleagues quickly pretended they hadn't been watching. A few offered hesitant smiles. Others looked away guiltily. They'd known what was coming and said nothing. I returned to my desk, legs surprisingly steady, and began organizing my files as if it were any normal Thursday afternoon. But inside, I felt hollow. I'd survived the ambush, even turned it around on my would-be executioners, but the betrayal still cut deep. The truth was, Vernon and I had once been more than colleagues. We'd never officially dated, workplace romances being discouraged, but there had been late nights working on projects that turned into dinner, drinks, confidences shared. I'd believed we had a connection beyond the professional. Then came the Hollister rebranding pitch. We'd both worked on concepts, but in the final meeting, Marcus had strongly preferred my approach. I'd tried to acknowledge Vernon's contributions, but the client had been clear. They wanted my vision, my execution. After that, something changed. Vernon's friendly messages stopped. His assistants became reluctant, then non-existent. I'd attributed it to normal professional disappointment, never imagining the depth of resentment brewing beneath his friendly facade. I was collecting my things to leave when Reggie appeared at my desk. "Kit, do you have a moment?" We walked to his office in silence. Once inside, he gestured for me to sit. "Penny has been suspended pending further investigation," he said without preamble. "Her involvement appears more extensive than Vernon implied." I nodded, unsurprised. "The director position," he continued. "It was always going to be yours. The announcement was scheduled for Monday." "Monday?" I frowned. "Vernon's note mentioned Friday." "Exactly." Penny moved the timeline to create urgency for their plan. She told Vernon it was happening Friday to pressure him into acting quickly. Reggie leaned forward. "They were going to fire you." Then Penny would claim the client relationships were at risk and needed immediate leadership. Vernon would be the only viable option on such short notice. The calculated nature of it made my stomach turn. "And you believe that would have worked?" "It might have," Reggie admitted. "With you gone and Vernon positioned as the savior of our biggest accounts, I would have faced significant pressure to promote him immediately." The realization of how close they'd come to succeeding washed over me. "If I hadn't found that note, the position is still yours," Reggie said, "if you want it." I hesitated. "What about the others who knew? The colleagues who watched this happen and said nothing?" Reggie looked uncomfortable. "Office politics are complicated, Kit." "Yes," I agreed. "They are." I left without giving him an answer. The promotion had been my goal for months, but now it felt tainted. Would I always wonder who else had been complicit? Who else might be waiting for their chance to undermine me? The office was nearly empty as I walked back to my desk. Only Zoe from IT remained, typing furiously at her computer. "Thanks for your help yesterday," I said as I passed. She looked up, fingers pausing. "I heard what happened. Vernon had it coming." "You knew him well?" She snorted. "Well enough. He corrupted my database last month, then reported me for the system crash. Almost cost me my job." I stopped. "He did what?" "Planted errors in the code, then acted like the hero who discovered the problem." Classic Vernon. She shrugged. "No way to prove it was him, though." "How many others?" I asked quietly. Zoe's eyes met mine. "More than you think." Vernon was methodical. Anyone he saw as competition, anyone who didn't worship him, anyone who called him out. They all had performance issues eventually. I sank into the chair beside her desk, mind racing. This wasn't just about me or the promotion. This was a pattern, one that Penny had enabled, perhaps even encouraged. "Do you have records?" I asked. "I'm a systems administrator," Zoe replied with a small smile. "I have records of everything." That night, instead of celebrating my narrow escape, I invited Zoe to my apartment. Over takeout and wine, she showed me what she'd been collecting for months. Evidence of Vernon's sabotage across multiple departments, affecting at least 7 employees. 3 had been fired, 2 had quit, 1 had been demoted. The last, Zoe herself, had narrowly escaped professional damage. "Why didn't you report this?" I asked, scrolling through the damning files. "To who?" "Penny." She protected him. "HR?" They took his side every time. Zoe took a sip of wine. Besides, individual incidents looked like mistakes or miscommunications. It's only when you see the pattern that it becomes clear. I thought about the people who'd lost their jobs, their reputations, their confidence, all because of Vernon's ambition and Penny's protection. My own narrow escape suddenly seemed less important compared to the wider damage they'd caused. "Vernon's gone," I said slowly, "but Penny's only suspended, and the culture that allowed this still exists." "What are you thinking?" Zoe asked. I closed her laptop, mind made up. "I'm thinking that surviving their attack isn't enough. Not for me, and definitely not for everyone else they hurt." "Revenge?" Zoe raised an eyebrow. "Justice," I corrected. "And prevention. What they did to me, to us, it can't happen again." Zoe studied me for a long moment. "You know, director positions have access to all departmental communications, past and present." The implication hung in the air between us. With the right position, I could expose not just what Vernon and Penny had done, but the systematic problems that had allowed their behavior to flourish. I haven't accepted the promotion yet, I said. Maybe you should. Zoe's eyes gleamed with something between mischief and vengeance. Sometimes you need to be inside the system to fix it. I picked up my phone and composed a brief message to Reggie. I'll take the position, starting Monday. So what's the plan? Zoe asked as I set down my phone. I smiled, the first genuine smile since finding Vernon's note. First, we gather everything you have. Then, we find everyone they hurt. After that, well, Penny only thinks she knows what revenge looks like. As we clinked glasses, I felt something I hadn't expected. Not just anger or satisfaction, but purpose. Vernon and Penny had tried to destroy me, but instead, they'd created something more dangerous. A woman with nothing left to lose and everything to prove. Monday morning would arrive soon enough, and with it, a reckoning no one at Powell Marketing would ever forget. Monday morning arrived with a storm that matched my mood. Rain lashed against the windows as I walked into Powell Marketing wearing a dark blue dress I'd never worn to the office before. Symbolic new beginnings. The weekend had been a blur of preparation. Zoe and I had compiled a comprehensive list of Vernon's victims, reviewed all available evidence, and mapped out a strategy that walked the fine line between justice and career suicide. I'd slept maybe 6 hours total, but adrenaline kept me sharp. Reggie met me at reception, all smiles and performative enthusiasm. Ready for your first day as Director of Client Relations? More than ready, I replied, matching his professional tone. The office felt different as we walked through. Colleagues who had avoided eye contact on Thursday now offered congratulatory smiles. Amazing how quickly allegiances shifted when power changed hands. My new office, what would have been Vernon's if his plan had succeeded, was spacious with windows overlooking the city. Reggie handed me a temporary access card. It will set up your permanent credentials this afternoon, he explained. Full system access, departmental files, client database, everything you need. I nodded, setting my bag on the desk that now belonged to me. Any update on Penny? His smile tightened. Still suspended pending review. The board meets Wednesday to discuss next steps. And the staff who knew about Thursday's plan? Reggie shifted uncomfortably. We're handling each case individually. No need for you to worry about that now. Translation. They were protecting anyone valuable enough to keep. Of course, I said smoothly. I'll focus on stabilizing client relationships. After Reggie left, I sat at my new desk, allowing myself exactly 30 seconds to absorb the moment. Then I began. First, I sent meeting requests to 3 people, Talia from accounting, Devin from creative, and Mason from account services. All former colleagues who'd experienced mysterious performance issues after crossing paths with Vernon. Zoe's data had shown suspicious patterns around their evaluations. My office phone rang. It was Amara, the receptionist. Director Ashmore, she said, the new title sounding strange. There's a Marcus Hollister on line 1 for you. I picked up. Marcus, thank you again for Thursday. Small price for 3 years of excellent service, he replied. I'm calling because your CEO reached out this weekend, rather desperately trying to ensure we're not taking our business elsewhere. And are you? That depends entirely on you. Vernon had been contacting me directly for weeks, claiming he was taking over our account. Said you were on your way out. My grip tightened on the phone. When was the first contact? About 2 months ago. I ignored him initially, but he was persistent. 2 months. Well before the director position had even opened. Vernon's plan had been in motion longer than I'd realized. I'd like to meet this week, I said. There are some changes coming I think you should be aware of. Intriguing. Lunch Wednesday? Perfect. Next, I logged into my email with my limited credentials. There was an all-staff message from Reggie announcing my promotion, carefully worded to avoid mentioning Thursday's events. The replies were already flooding in. Congratulations from people who'd witnessed my near downfall in silence. Talia arrived first, knocking tentatively on my open door. At 35, she was older than me by several years, with expertise that should have earned her a senior position long ago. You wanted to see me? She asked. Close the door, I suggested. She did, taking a seat, with visible nervousness. If this is about the Mitchell account reconciliation, I can explain the delay. It's not, I interrupted gently. It's about why you were passed over for senior financial analyst last year, despite having the strongest qualifications. Her expression shifted from anxiety to wariness. That's ancient history. Is it? Or is it part of a pattern involving Vernon and Penny? Talia went very still. What exactly are you suggesting? I slid a folder across the desk. These are records of file access logs showing Vernon viewing confidential financial reports he had no authorization for, right before errors appeared in your work. She opened the folder with shaking hands. How did you get these? Does it matter? The question is, what happened after those errors were discovered? Talia's professional demeanor cracked. Penny called me careless, said I clearly wasn't ready for advancement. The promotion went to Vernon's friend from college instead. Would you be willing to make a formal statement about this? Her eyes widened. Are you building a case? I'm seeking justice, I replied, for all of us. By lunchtime, I'd spoken with all 3 former victims. Their stories followed the same pattern. Vernon undermining their work, Penny enabling the sabotage, careers derailed or stalled. Each had agreed to document their experiences, with varying degrees of reluctance. As I was reviewing their notes, my temporary access card flickered from red to green, and full director-level system privileges had been granted. I immediately logged into the secure server and began searching for Penny's archived emails. What I found exceeded my expectations. Dozens of messages between Penny and Vernon discussing problem employees and how to manage them out, references to our arrangement, and mutual advancement goals. The systematic dismantling of careers that stood in their way. Most damning was an email from 3 weeks ago. Once Kit is gone, I'll need the regional VP to see you as the obvious choice for my replacement when I move up. The Mitchell presentation is our opportunity. Make sure her materials have those unfortunate errors we discussed. They hadn't just targeted me for a job. They'd been planning a complete leadership takeover, with Penny advancing to regional operations and Vernon taking her position. I was so absorbed in my discovery that I almost missed Celia from HR appearing in my doorway. Kit, do you have a minute? It's about the incident. I closed the email window. Of course. Celia closed the door behind her, looking uncharacteristically serious. The board wants statements from everyone involved before Wednesday's meeting. Standard procedure. I'm happy to provide one. There's something else. She lowered her voice. Penny is claiming you fabricated evidence against her and Vernon. Says you were jealous of their close working relationship and created false emails to sabotage them. My blood ran cold. That's absurd. I know, Celia assured me. But she's worked here 12 years, has friends on the board. They're taking her claims seriously enough to launch a formal investigation. Into me? Into the entire situation. It is conducting a full system audit to verify the authenticity of all electronic evidence, including the files Zoe and I had accessed over the weekend. If they traced our digital footprints, when does this audit begin? I asked, keeping my voice steady. Tomorrow morning. I forced a smile. Thank you for the heads up. After Celia left, I immediately texted Zoe. It audit tomorrow. Need to talk as soon as possible. We met in the one place nobody would overhear us, the supply closet on the rarely used 5th floor. They'll find our searches, Zoe said bluntly. My access is legitimate, but they'll question why I was looking at HR files and executive emails. Can you cover our tracks? Not without making things worse. Deleting access logs would be like announcing our guilt. I leaned against a shelf of printer paper. So we're caught. Not necessarily. Zoe's expression turned calculating. What if we're not hiding anything? What if we're conducting our own official investigation? Explain. You're a director now. If you formally requested an investigation into potential ethics violations before the audit begins, our searches become legitimate. Penny would claim I'm retaliating. Not if you're not the only one asking questions. Zoe raised an eyebrow. How many victims did we identify? 7 confirmed, 3 more probable. And how many have agreed to come forward? A plan began forming in my mind, enough to create a pattern no one can ignore. That afternoon, I drafted an official memo to the board requesting an ethics investigation based on concerns raised by multiple employees. Talia, Devin, and Mason, all signed as witnesses. I submitted it at 4:57 p.m., just before the administrative deadline for board meeting agendas. By Tuesday morning, the office was humming with tension. Word had spread about both Penny's counter-accusations and my formal complaint. Battle lines were being drawn, with longtime employees largely supporting Penny, while newer staff rallied behind me. Reggie called me into his office before 9. This is getting out of hand, he said, my memo sitting on his desk. The board is concerned about the company's reputation. I'm concerned about its ethics, I countered. Kit, his tone turned patronizing. You won your battle. You got the promotion. Continuing this vendetta against Penny looks vindictive. Vendetta? I repeated. 7 careers were damaged or destroyed. This isn't about me anymore. The board sees it differently. They're prepared to offer Penny early retirement with full benefits if you'll drop this investigation. And sweep everything under the rug? I shook my head. Not happening. Reggie's expression hardened. Then you should know Penny's submitted evidence suggesting you and Vernon had a personal relationship that ended badly. She's claiming this is all motivated by romantic rejection. The accusation hit like a physical blow. Those private dinners, the confidence is shared. Vernon had apparently told Penny everything, twisted to serve their narrative. That's a lie, I said, though technically it wasn't entirely false. We had been close once, but I'd ended any potential romance when I realized his interest spiked after my successful projects. Truth doesn't always matter in these situations, Reggie said. Perception does. And right now, the perception is of a messy workplace drama rather than ethical violations. I left his office feeling the ground shifting beneath me. They were reframing the narrative, turning corporate sabotage into a spurned lover's revenge. The evidence I'd gathered suddenly seemed less compelling against that backdrop. By Wednesday morning, my position had weakened further. 2 of my witnesses had mysteriously withdrawn their statements. The IT audit had been expanded to include my personal devices. Marcus had called to reschedule our lunch, citing a conflict. The board meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m., the same time Vernon had planned to fire me a week earlier. The symmetry wasn't lost on me. As I walked to the conference room, Zoe intercepted me in the hallway. They're going to offer you a deal, she whispered. Mutual non-disparagement. Everyone keeps their jobs. No one admits wrongdoing. How do you know? Because I just set up the presentation showing the proposed agreement. Classic corporate cover-up. My heart sank. A week of work, all the evidence gathered, the careers damaged, all to be brushed away in the name of company stability. I entered the boardroom with my head high despite the sickening feeling in my stomach. 12 board members sat around the massive table, with Reggie at the head. Penny sat on one side, looking confident. Kit, Reggie began, thank you for joining us. We've reviewed all submitted materials regarding the situation between you, Vernon, and Penny. I nodded, saying nothing. After careful consideration, we believe the most productive path forward is a mutual resolution. He slid a document toward me. This agreement stipulates that all parties cease investigation into past events, maintain confidentiality, and commit to professional collaboration moving forward. I didn't touch the paper, and if I refuse, one of the board members, an older man I recognized as the company founder, cleared his throat. Then, unfortunately, we would need to consider whether your continued employment serves the company's best interests. A clear threat. Sign or be fired. Exactly what Vernon and Penny had planned, just through different means. I looked around the table at these powerful people ready to sacrifice ethics for convenience. Then I pulled out my phone and placed it on the table. Before I respond, I said calmly, I'd like you all to listen to something. I pressed play. Doesn't matter what actually happened, came Reggie's voice. We need this to disappear before clients hear about it. Offer her the agreement. If she doesn't sign, terminate immediately and control the narrative. A woman's voice, Penny's, responded. And my promotion to regional operations? Let's get through this first. But yes, the plan remains in place. I stopped the recording. The room had gone completely silent. That conversation happened in your office this morning, I said to Reggie. Before this meeting, you recorded us illegally, he sputtered. Actually, came a new voice from the doorway. It was recorded legally, through the company's own security system. Marcus Hollister stood there, along with a woman in a tailored suit I didn't recognize. What is the meaning of this? Demanded the board chairman. Marcus stepped forward. I'm here as both a concerned client and a potential investor. This is Elaine Torres, from the Department of Labor's Ethics Division. Elaine nodded. We've received multiple complaints about systematic workplace harassment and retaliation at Powell Marketing. Given the pattern of allegations, we've opened a formal investigation. The board members exchanged alarmed glances. My lunch cancellation was strategic, Marcus explained to me. Elaine needed time to review the evidence before this meeting. What evidence? Reggie demanded. I smiled for the first time that day. Everything. The emails between you and Penny planning leadership changes. The systematic sabotage of employees who stood in your way. The falsified performance reviews. The unauthorized access to secure files. And most importantly, Anne DeVlash, statements from every person whose career you damaged, including those who left the company. Elaine placed a thick folder on the table. We have testimony from 11 former and current employees describing a pattern of workplace misconduct spanning 3 years. This is absurd, Penny protested. Kit is obviously retaliating because you and Vernon plotted to destroy her career? Marcus interrupted. That part is well documented, including your email admitting the revenge firing was your idea originally. The chairman looked stricken. Reggie, is this true? Before Reggie could respond, I placed another document on the table. This is my resignation, effective immediately. I've accepted a position as Director of Client Services at Hollister Brands, where Marcus has assured me ethical business practices are more than just words in a mission statement. I stood, gathering my things. The Department of Labor has everything they need to continue their investigation without me. I suggest you cooperate fully. Attempting to cover up labor violations only compounds the penalties. As I walked toward the door, the chairman called after me. Kit, wait, perhaps we can discuss this reasonably. I turned back one last time. I tried reason. I tried evidence. I tried following proper channels. You chose to protect the powerful rather than the victims. Now you can explain that choice to federal investigators and your shareholders. Marcus held the door for me as stunned silence filled the room behind us. Well played, he murmured as we walked away. I had good help, I admitted, thinking of Zoe, Talia, and every other person who'd found the courage to speak up. At the elevator, I found Zoe waiting with a small box of my personal items. Figured you might not want to clean out your office with everyone watching, she said. Thank you. I hesitated. For everything. She grinned. Don't thank me yet. My resignation letter goes in tomorrow. Marcus mentioned his IT department needs a new systems administrator. Already approved, I confirmed. And we need an accounting director too, if Talia's interested. As we walked out of Powell Marketing for the last time, rain still fell outside, but the storm in my heart had cleared. Vernon was gone. Penny would follow. The company that had valued politics over people would face its reckoning without me. My revenge wasn't firing them or exposing them publicly or even taking their jobs. It was creating something better from the ashes of what they'd tried to destroy. A workplace where talent was rewarded, not punished. Where ambition didn't require sabotage. 6 months later, the Powell Marketing sign came down from the building. The company had been acquired after their stock plummeted, following the Labor Department's findings. Reggie and 4 board members had resigned. Penny had been terminated and was fighting a civil suit from former employees. Meanwhile, Hollister Brands' marketing division, staffed by many familiar faces, had just won its biggest client ever, the company that had acquired Powell's remains. Sometimes the best revenge isn't what you take from others, but what you build for yourself. And sometimes, justice arrives in ways no one expects, not through a single dramatic moment, but through the collective courage of people who refuse to remain silent. If you've ever faced workplace betrayal or watched someone being unfairly targeted, drop a comment about how you handled it. Would you have done what Kit did or taken a different approach? Like and subscribe for more stories about workplace justice. And share this with anyone who needs a reminder that speaking truth to power isn't just right. Sometimes, it's the ultimate revenge.